I seek refuge with God from Satan the outcast. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful. Peace, blessings, and mercy of God be upon you. Brother Abraham here, and welcome to another session in Common Sense Lessons from the Qur'an. In this lesson entitled, What is God's View on the LGBTQ Movement According to Scripture? We want to share with you what we believe to be the Islamic position on the LGBTQ affair and movement according to what has been revealed in the Qur'an and previous scriptures from God. Several videos have surfaced discussing the Islamic position on the matter being one of either compromise or not being addressed in the Qur'an. We disagree with both positions and sound the alarm to believers living in countries that condone and justify the movement and the abominable acts of the movement. Before we begin, let us assure you that we are not scholars of the Qur'an and Islamic teachings. We have not attended any Islamic institutes, and we do not follow any particular school of thought also known as madhabs. We believe unequivocally in what Allah has revealed in the Qur'an, and we follow the method used by the father of the faith prophet Abraham, which is common sense or aqil. Our God-given common sense enlightens us to right and wrong, good and evil. And this occurs naturally in humankind regardless of religion, religious teachings, religious leaders, or religious books. This is proven by the fact that there are idol worshippers and atheists who strive to perform good deeds. Generally speaking, humanity feels inclined to perform good acts over evil. The inclination results from the life-given spirit breathed into Adam by God at the time of his creation, which has as its foundation common sense, reason, justice, and belief and faith in the unseen creator and sustainer, to name a few. For this purpose, your common sense and reasoning is that to which we appeal. We believe their use and misuse, proven by our actions, will determine why we committed good and evil acts on the day of judgment, with paradise or hell being the payment. Also, it is unnecessary to watch this video, but it is very important to listen to it and consider deeply the information we are sharing with you. That being said, let me continue by stating that indecision is a quality of humankind, and perhaps the Jinn. This fact can easily be proven by the false gods of Greco-Roman mythology and those of pre-Islamic Arabia. Indecision is not a quality of Allah, as it implies the inability to make up one's mind, which suggests confusion. Men's needs, desires, and shortcomings often require answers for those things we do not understand or want to accept. Thus, God is personified and given human qualities to compensate for our flaws and weaknesses. Scripture teaches us that Allah is absolute, which means there is no indecision in Him. There is not even the capacity for Allah to be indecisive. Does Allah adjust His decisions out of mercy and compassion for mankind? Absolutely. Allah understands our strengths and weaknesses, as it is He who has created us. He informs us of this several times in the Qur'an. Let us examine a few verses where Allah has instituted His understanding, compassion, and mercy. In chapter 2, the cow, verse 173, we read,
He hath forbidden you only carrion, and blood, and swine flesh, and that which hath been sacrificed to any other than Allah. But he who is driven by necessity, neither craving nor transgressing, it is no sin for him, though Allah is forgiving, merciful.
In chapter 6, the cattle, verse 145, we read,
Say, I find not in that which is revealed unto me aught prohibited to an eater that he eat thereof, except it be carrion, or blood poured forth, or swine flesh, for that verily is foul, or the abomination which was sacrificed to the name of other than Allah. But whoso is compelled, neither craving nor transgressing, lo, thy Lord is forgiving, merciful.
In chapter 16, the bee, verse 115, we read,
He hath forbidden for you only carrion and blood and swine flesh, and that which hath been sacrificed in the name of any other than Allah. But he who is driven thereto, neither craving nor transgressing, lo, then Allah is forgiving, merciful.
In the 3 verses just read, Allah has forbidden or prohibited eating certain things that were, have been, and are being consumed as food. Thus, They are all haram in religious terms. Yet Allah has revealed in the same verses that they may be eaten if driven by necessity. Does eating them due to necessity make them halal? Absolutely not, which is why Allah sealed the verses with forgiveness and mercy. Requiring forgiveness implies having sinned. Thus, Allah recognizes undesirable conditions in which a person or people may find themselves due to their errors or the errors of others. What He has allowed is a result of His mercy. Also, excuses like pork or swine's flesh was the only meat being served, or that's how bacon and cheese sandwiches are prepared, are unacceptable excuses for being driven by necessity when any other type of halal food is available. We are also commanded to fast, except under certain conditions. And there are other conditional commandments revealed in the Qur'an, but the conditions, like the commandments, are absolute. Once they have been ordained, they do not change. They are as close as we come to a middle ground in what is halal and haram. Moving on. Though we have found some of the views in the videos on homosexuality in the Qur'an to be on point, the overall theme of the argument is twisted, and one of compromised. Far too many simple facts were overlooked by those desiring homosexuality not to be in the Qur'an, or to be given some form of Islamic passive acceptance. We disagree with such statements, just as we disagree with any notion of the Apostle Lot, as revealed in the Qur'an, not being the same Apostle Lot identified in the Torah, which was another of the arguments present in one of the videos. Note that I said the Qur'an and the Torah, not the Qur'an and the Bible, as we know that God didn't reveal the Bible, but He did reveal the Torah. In both the Torah and the Qur'an, the narrations and sequences of events surrounding the Apostle Lot are virtually the same, though their presentations and documentation are different. The presentation of the Torah is mainly in story form, similar to the presentation of a hadith. In comparison, the presentation and theme of the Qur'an are mainly situational and responsive, or in accordance with what was occurring at any given time, or what needed to be clarified at certain times. Now let us consider the similitude of events revealed in the Torah and the Qur'an concerning God's Apostle Lot and the people of Sodom and Gomorrah that led to their destruction. And we will put a link in the description for those who wish to examine the similitudes themselves. In the first similitude, the angels visit Prophet Abraham and his wife Sarah with glad tidings of the birth of a son in their old ages. In the second similitude, Sarah laughs or smiles at the notion of giving birth to a child in her old age. In the third similitude, Prophet Abraham pleads on behalf of Prophet Lot, after learning the angels were also sent to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. In the fourth similitude, angels arrive at Lot's house, who attempts to shelter them from the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. In the fifth similitude, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah insist Apostle Lot give them the angels. In the sixth similitude, Lot offers his daughters as compensation instead of the angels. Note: this is not a concept we believe or accept for reasons we will share at another time, in another video. In the seventh similitude, the angels instruct Apostle Lot to leave with his family and not to look back, which Apostle Lot's wife does, and she was destroyed as a result. Though there are more similitudes in the accounts of Apostle Lot's life in the Torah and the Qur'an, let those mentioned suffice for now. Our point is that the Apostle Lot of the Torah is the same Apostle Lot of the Qur'an, and that the similitudes of the two sources far outweigh any potato-potato differences presented by those who argue that the two Apostle Lots are not the same person. Moving on. I have a question for you. Do you know of any place in the Qur'an where Allah has revealed that He destroyed a people without revealing why He destroyed them? We have found in the Qur'an that every time Allah destroyed people, communities, and nations, He gave the reasons for doing so. For example, Allah destroyed the Thamud people of Prophet Salih, who worshipped the false gods of their fathers. In chapter 11, Hud, verse 62, we read,
O Sally, you have been among us as a figure of good hope, and we wished for you to be our chief, till this new thing which you have brought. that we leave our gods and worship your God alone? Do you now forbid us to worship what our fathers have worshipped? But we are really in grave doubt about that monotheism you invite us to.
Allah also destroyed the Madian people of Shoaib, who were a bunch of arrogant cheats and mischief makers that obstructed believers from Allah's straight path. In chapter 7, The Heights, verse 86, we read,
And squat not on every road, breathing threats, hindering from the path of Allah those who believe in him, and seeking in it something crooked, but remember how you were little, and he gave you increase, and hold in your mind what was the end of those who did mischief.
There was also Pharaoh, who made himself a god to his people, while oppressing the children of Israel, and he met with doom as a result. In chapter 7, The Heights, verse 137, we read,
And we made a people, considered weak, inheritors of lands in both east and west, lands whereon we sent down our blessings. The fair promise of thy Lord was fulfilled for the children of Israel, because they had patience and constancy, and we leveled to the ground the great works and fine buildings which Pharaoh and his people erected.
One destruction I find most striking is that Allah even destroyed the odd people of Prophet Hud, who believed in Allah but not in the hereafter. In chapter 23, The Believers, verse 36 to 38, we read,
Far, very far is that which you are promised. There is nothing but our life of this world. We die and we live, and we are not going to be resurrected. He is only a man who has invented a lie against Allah, and we are not going to believe in him.
The destruction of the odd people also warns believers that it is not enough to only believe in Allah's existence, unless you think those destroyed among the odd people will receive Jannah. Nowadays, all such acts of disobedience are being committed globally, and have been for ages. Therefore, none of the evil and disobedience being done is new. It goes and comes back around. It will meet Allah's destruction in this life and the next. The general message of such acts in the Qur'an is to be taken as warnings, as the Qur'an is a guidance for all of those it reaches. Now here is our most important question. What crime did the people of Sodom and Gomorrah commit that caused their destruction, which occurred during the lifetime of Prophet Abraham? This was during the time that Prophet Abraham's father and people were engaged in the unforgivable crime of idol worship. What crime were the people of Sodom and Gomorrah committing that would have Allah point them out for destruction, while bypassing people who were worshipping gods besides Allah? What could Allah have determined to be so detestable and deserving of destruction? In chapter 27, The Ant, verses 54 to 58, we read,
And Lot, when he said unto his folk, Will ye commit immorality knowingly? Do you approach men with desire instead of women? Nay, but ye are folk who act senselessly. But the answer of his folk was not save that they said, Expel the household of Lot from your township, for they are folk who would keep clean. Then we saved him and his household except for his wife. We destined her to be of those who stayed behind, and we rained a rain upon them. Dreadful is the rain of those who have been warned.
In chapter 7, The Heights, verses 80 to 81, we read,
And Lot, when he said to his people, What? Do you commit an outrage none in the world ever committed before you? Indeed, you approach men with desire instead of women. Rather, you are a transgressing people.
In the verses just read, Allah has revealed that the problem of these people was that they desired men instead of women, in an immoral and transgressing way. Apostle Lot's statements make it clear that the people he was addressing should have been desiring women, which is indicative of the Apostle Lot addressing men, as to that which they were desiring being wrong, as they were men desiring men. In chapter 15, The Rock, verses 67 to 71, we read,
And the people of the city came, rejoicing at the news of new arrivals. He said, Lo, they are my guests. Disrespect me not, and keep your duty to Allah, and shame me not. They said, Have we not forbidden you from hosting anyone? He said, Here are my daughters, if you must be acting so.
If the people who tried to get Apostle Lot to give them the angels weren't Sodomites, what did they want the angels for? A fun-filled night on the town? I don't think so. Here's why. In chapter 7, The Heights, verse 82, we read,
And his people gave no answer, but this they said, Drive them out of your city. These are people who want to be clean and pure.
According to the Quranic verse just read, the people of the city knew their acts were unclean and impure, and they didn't want people who were clean and pure in their city. Now, returning to one of the videos that addressed homosexuality in the Quran, there was also a question of challenge, sympathy, or empathy that went something like this. If homosexuals are so bad, why doesn't Allah destroy them today? After all, nowadays the sin has spread globally, with far more participants than those of Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, the best we can offer is that we are all being tested and given respite, just like Satan. And like Satan, no one will escape Allah's judgment or whatever Allah determines we are due for various sins we've all committed, unless we receive His mercy. If you genuinely want to understand the seriousness of the sins committed by the LGBTQ community and supported by religious and world leaders globally, consider Apostle Lot's dua to Allah, which was answered, and consider the commandments that were given to Apostle Lot concerning his manner of departure from the cities. In chapter 26, the Poets, verses 169 to 171, we read,
O my Lord, deliver me and my family from such things as they do. So we delivered him and his family, all, except an old woman who lingered behind.
In chapter 11, Hud, verse 81, we read,
They said, O Lot, we are the messengers of your Lord. They shall by no means reach you, so remove your family in a part of the night. And let none of you look back except your wife, for surely whatsoever befalls them shall befall her.
Apostle Lot was seeking a way out, which he was given under the commandment that neither he nor his family look back, which is indicative of total separation from the crimes of Sodom and Gomorrah. Allah knew though Apostle Lot was living in the evil cities, he was not submissive to their acts or condoning them in any way. Anyone who is not of the LGBTQ community but condones their abominable actions in any way has assumed the same position as the wife of Apostle Lot, because God has not left room for compromise concerning the matter in question. Apostle Lot's wife compromised Allah's commandments and wasn't given time for repentance. Something else we noticed about the Quranic story of the abominable sins and destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The Apostle Lot didn't receive prophecy to warn the people of the cities of the impending doom about to befall them, as did the other doomed nations mentioned in the Quran. The messenger angels of destruction came to the cities, told Apostle Lot to leave with his family, and then annihilated the cities and all within. Allah has also given the believing Muslims their spoken marching orders by way of his Apostle Lot's statement, because though he was living in the midst of the abominable nation, he stated directly, in chapter 26, The Poets, verse 168, we read,
He said, Indeed, I am, toward your deed, of those who detest it.
The LGBTQ movement is not merely a crime against humanity and abomination according to what Allah has revealed in the Torah, the Gospels, and the Quran. It is counter to the nature of humankind and animals. This is why, globally, the acts are detested by those of sound mind, regardless of religious background, following or not following religion at all. To compromise, justify, or in any way condone same-sex marriage and unions is to call Allah a liar. As Allah has decreed, marriage is between a man and a woman. Sympathy towards family and friends is not an excuse or option in the face of Allah and what He has commandmented. Allah swore to Prophet Muhammad by Prophet Muhammad's life that an illness had overcome the minds of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. In chapter 15, The Rock, verse 72, we read,
By thy life, Muhammad, they were in their intoxication, wandering blindly.
Are we to take the words Allah revealed to His messenger as something positive in any way, other than some form of warning to the believers? Should believing Muslims follow and support such people that Allah has determined are undoubtedly blind and ill of mind? Throughout the Quran, Allah has given us the best examples to follow in any situation we encounter. His Apostle Lot is the best example of how to handle the LGBTQ affair. No other prophet, messenger, apostle, or rightly guided servants of Allah are mentioned in the Qur'an as having experienced the abominations of Sodom and Gomorrah. Therefore, if approached and questioned concerning the matter, Allah has given us the best response through His apostle Lot.
He said, "Indeed, I am toward your deed of those who detest it."
It is simple and to the point. God's apostle Lot did not say that he detested any person, people, family member, or friend. He said he detested the act. Glory, praise, and thanks be to Allah, who has guided us to this. May Allah's peace, blessings, and mercy be upon those who believe and submit to His way.